Welcome. Today, we are going over success indicators and how you can know if you've possibly moved on when they don't tell you anything. Let's discuss. Hey, before we get started, those gifts are down in the description. Whether you're listening on social or you're listening on the podcast, it doesn't matter. Those gifts are in the description. One, the Getting Started workshop is going to walk you through every phase of the hiring process. It's going to let you know what it is that you need to be looking for and preparing for. Plus, there's some hidden bonuses in there. Excuse me. Additionally, you have the free coaching call with myself or another member where you can sign up. We have after hours time now where you can sign up for the weekends or a little bit later in the evenings. If I wasn't available for you before, we're trying to make it so when we're more available to you now. Sign up for those. Both of those are free, our gift to you. Now, success indicators or micro indicators, you'll hear me call them that all the time. And what are they? Imagine this. Imagine you go to your hiring board, right? Let's say you go to your board interview and you sit down and you answer all the questions and they say, okay, thank you for your time, but they don't tell you anything past that point, or they say, hey, we'll be in touch and let you know your results. But you don't know what's going on past that point. You don't know if you passed or you don't know if you failed. But there's indicators, right? There's micro indicators or success indicators that will let you know that you probably passed. Now, this isn't with every department. So if you don't see these, don't get discouraged, right? Because not every department will do it this way. However, if this does happen, you can reasonably assume you're moving on to the next phase. Let's look at a couple of them with the scenario we just had. So we have our board interview. We do our board interview. It takes however long it needs to. And the individuals say, hey, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And then someone comes in to escort you out, or maybe one of the board members starts escorting you out. And beforehand, you go get your fingerprints done and they give you a background packet, or they tell you to do some other step afterwards. That's usually an indicator that you have passed your board interview. And why is that? That's because if you are, if you weren't going to pass it, they wouldn't have you do anything else. They definitely wouldn't fingerprint you because that's how they're going to start your background process and run you through the database. If they weren't going to hire you, they wouldn't give you a background packet to fill out, right? If you didn't pass your board interview, they wouldn't give you a background packet to fill out and say, hey, start working on this and we'll be in contact for you to give it back to us. Or they wouldn't give you another actionable step because you didn't pass. And you can pretty much rely on these fairly religiously, right? If they're asking you to do another phase, another step, there's a good chance that you've passed that phase. And it's not just with the board interview. So fingerprints, giving you a background packet, asking you to complete another step, any of those things are called micro indicators or success indicators that you have successfully passed that phase or that portion of the hiring process. Now, what about something else? Let's go down to the actual background interview, right? You get called in, the background investigator says, hey, bring in your packet or send me your packet. And then we're going to come in, we're going to do an interview that could be via Zoom or that could be in person, whatever. And they say, I want to go over your background packet. And you're going over your background packet with them and you're feeling stressed because it feels more like an interrogation because it is an interrogation, right? And you're trying to think, man, there's no way I passed that, or geez, that was rough. But then they say, okay, hey, get me your transcripts, or get me your diploma, or hey, I need these point of contacts. I need contact information for these individual. Another actionable step, or hey, I need your last 3 years of tax returns. Anything along those lines. If they're asking you for that after you completed your interview, most likely you passed your background interview because the individual wouldn't be asking for more. If you said something or did something that was so questionable that you would not pass, they won't give you more actionable steps. They'll just tell you, hey, I appreciate your time. We'll be in contact. And then they'll just let you go. Now they'll say that to you, even with actionable steps, but that doesn't mean that you failed. Right. So if they say, hey, get me your high school diploma and your college transcripts, I need official transcripts, and we'll be in contact and we'll let you know how you did. Okay. I appreciate it. I'll get those right to you. And then obviously hurry up and get those right to them. And you might be waiting. You might be waiting 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks, right? I say all the time, I don't let my coaching members follow up within a 4 week period outside of extenuating circumstances. However, right? If they're telling you to do something past the point in which you feel you may have not done well on, or you're unsure of how you did well, your board interview, your background interview, there's a good chance that you've passed, or at least you've done well enough to continue moving forward in that phase or to the next phase, right? Let's go to the poly. I see this all the time, and I actually have members that this gets to them, where in the polygraph, they'll say, hey, they'll run you through it. You'll do your pre-poly, you'll do your poly, and then you'll do your post-poly interview. Then they'll say, hey, there's some questionable stuff here. We might need to bring you back in. Okay, that's a good thing. That means that anything that they saw wasn't an immediate fail, right? They didn't see anything that said that maybe they're uncertain, but nothing you did actually failed the poly. So if they say, hey, come back in, make sure you maintain honesty, always be honest, right? And then don't change any answers from that point on, right? Unless you actually failed to disclose something by accident, right? But even still, that's probably going to have a negative effect on you. So be honest up front, get everything right the first time. And then if they ask you to come back, that's a good thing. That means you didn't fail your polygraph. That just means they want to make sure, because some things just didn't add up to them, but the polygraph wasn't a conclusive factor that was saying, hey, you're completely being dishonest here. It's a good thing to have to come back and do the poly, and that's a micro indicator that you didn't fail it. The hardest one is probably the psych, right? Outside of the psychologist telling you, hey, everything looks good and I'm going to move you forward. That one's a really hard one to tell. There's not a lot of micro indicators there. There's just indicators that you passed. So for the most part, the psych is the one I wouldn't really touch on. But same with the written exam. Say you complete the written exam, and say you complete it at the department, right? Say it's not a third-party testing facility. Say you complete it at the department, and then they hand you a packet, hey, or maybe they ask some people to leave, and you stay. That's an indicator you passed, right? Or they hand you a packet after the completion, right? That means maybe you passed your written exam, right? Because they're giving you documentation to fill out. That's a micro indicator or a success indicator that, hey, you're moving forward because they need more information from you. If you didn't pass, they wouldn't need that information. I hope you're tracking with me on this one, because it's a real big one. And I see a lot of people stress out about it when the writing is on the wall right there. You can 100% dictate if you're moving forward through micro indicators or success indicators. Now, that doesn't mean that it's always accurate, right? So a lot of times individuals will contact me and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I say, hey, I think you passed, right? And then they add something else in there. I'm like, whoa, that wasn't in the first part. Or they misinterpreted the indicator. And I'll if you interpret it right, it's pretty accurate. But if you misinterpret the indicator, no, you're not doing well. So perfect example is, oh, hey, the investigator or the board said, hey, you did a really good job, and you're we're looking forward to talking to you in the future. Just because they said, we're looking forward to talking to you in the future isn't necessarily 100% indicator, right? There's no actionable step. An actionable step is that micro indicator. Usually when they're asking for something, that's when you can have that certainty. And I said 100%, but nothing's ever perfect. Maybe high 90 percentile, but even still, just for term of art here, right? I would just keep that in mind. Just because someone says, oh, yep, hey, everything looks good, I'm going to move you forward, that does not mean anything, right? You need actionable information. You're given a task to complete. You've been given a letter saying that you completed a task, or official correspondence that could be via email. Word of mouth is not official correspondence. Make sure you understand that. Just because a background investigator said, hey, I'm done, everything looks good in your background, that doesn't mean you passed and you're going to get hired, right? Because you still have your psych, you still have your poly, you still have your chief's interview, if that's what you have, or your SAC interview. There's too much at stake to just rely on word of mouth. So something either actionable to show that you're moving forward, or some type of official correspondence. But these micro indicators can really, really reduce some stress. And I understand it's a stressful process. People that don't even really realize or say, hey, I want to get into law enforcement. I think it's an honorable career, and I think it's a good career to have for my family, right? Those individuals that aren't even die hard into law enforcement, where they're saying this is what I've always wanted to be since I was a kid, right? There's nothing wrong with either one. Make sure you understand that, right? Even those individuals get worried about it once they're in the process, because they start saying, hey, I'm working really hard at this. This is actually a lengthy process that I have to put a lot of energy and effort into. I want to do well, because everyone always wants to do well. So keep that in mind, right? Keep that in mind, that it doesn't matter where you fall. You're still probably going to get a little worked up at some point in time. But if you have a little bit of inside information, which is what I'm trying to do here, you can know that, hey, these micro indicators or these success indicators mean that you're probably moving on. And once again, just because you didn't get these, does not mean that you didn't pass. Keep that in mind. These are just one way to relatively assume that, hey, I probably passed that. I hope this helps. Remember, there's some more things to help you down in the description. That's the Getting Started workshop. It's going to walk you through every part of the hiring process, every phase of it. It will really benefit you. And then the additional one is, if you have something specific to you, where you want to know something to really stand out and make your chances of getting hired elevated, right? And you really want to succeed, reach out to a free coaching call. I'd be glad to sit down and talk with you. We have those additional hours that we've added in for the weekends and the evenings now. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.